We're living beyond dementia, connecting our lives to help us survive.
Hi, welcome to Professional Insights. My name is Laurie Scherrer, and I am on the Board of Directors and Advisory Board at Dementia Action Alliance. Today, I am so thrilled to have two guests with me. First, I have Erin Wallace, BS CDP. She's worked in healthcare for 20 years, specifically with older adults living with various forms of cognitive change, as well as their care partners. Throughout that time, Erin has learned from and listened to individuals living with dementia and created programming based on those needs that were expressed. Erin also volunteers with as a facilitator for the Michigan Dementia Minds Group. Erin lives in Michigan with her husband, Bo, and their children. Bo has been living with a rare brain disorder, diagnosed in 2019. Erin, welcome to our group.
Thank you so much for having me. Honored to be here.
And our second guest, which many of you already know, but I'm going to do the formal introduction. Our next guest is Brenda Roberts, MA. She has over 40 years of experience in the human service field, working with elders and persons living with disabilities. Now, I know she doesn't look like she could have 40 years. She started when she was 10. As a volunteer, Brenda facilitates the activities of the Dementia Minds, which is a group of persons living with dementia whose mission is to teach about living with dementia by people living with dementia. Brenda and her husband, Mark, live in Michigan. Mark was diagnosed with vascular dementia in 2014. Brenda, so glad to have you with us once again.
Oh, Laurie, it is my absolute pleasure to be here and to bring my new friend Erin along with me to help me out. Because heaven knows I don't have enough to talk about on my own.
Well, today, our subject is one that we've had people living with dementia ask about over and over again. So I'm so thrilled that you two have agreed to come in and talk about this. What we're going to be talking about is, how do I, as a person living with dementia, help my loved one, my partner, my care partner, my spouse, whoever that person may be, to deal with his or her grief and anger, sorrow sometimes. And for me, Brenda and Erin, I know sometimes I feel like, boy, I know Roy's sad because me. I know that the changes he sees in me are hurting him. How do we deal with that? So that's our topic. But I'm going to start off by asking the question, as a care partner, tell me about your emotions as you're watching your loved one go through changes. We'll pick on Erin first.
You know, that's an easy question to feel and a difficult question to put into a verbal answer. As a care partner, you know, really watching them go through change is hard. It's sad on you. It can be emotionally draining. It can cause a lot of anxiety, even of just what's next. What's the next piece to come? And that really just can spiral a lot of different emotions, and they can hit you sometimes all at once, even. And that's speaking from my own personal experience. But really just a myriad of emotions that can come across.
I have to say, for me, that one of the hardest things for me, I think, is not just dealing with my own emotions, but dealing with my children's emotions and my grandchildren's emotions. So all of that, taking on the responsibility, like I'm responsible for it. I'm not, but taking on that responsibility on is probably one of the most difficult things for me. And then another part, Laurie, that you mentioned before we started, and Mark often says this, uses the fault word. It's because it's my fault. Well, it's not his fault he has dementia. And so I don't really see it as his fault. Kind of understand. I don't have it. I get why he says it's my fault. It's because his body's the body with the dementia, not mine, and so he perceives it as his fault. But that statement makes me feel really sad, because I'm like, I don't see it as his fault. He feels that and says that, but that's not a feeling that I have.
I have to agree with that, Brenda, especially when talking about the children's aspect and wanting to take on, wanting to make things feel nice and smooth and everything's hunky dory, as the mother, if you will, and the woman, the female of the household, we typically assume those roles. And so that can be just really, really, really challenging and draining as well.
Well, and Laurie, you don't even have to ask us a question, because what I'll say then too is, and Erin and I, we have very different aged children. I mean, she has little children, kids in middle school, elementary still at home, where I'm talking even my adult children and then my grandchildren. So it doesn't matter how old your kids are. It's still something to reckon with, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. I didn't look at it from that aspect, but I'm sure that is very difficult to go through, helping them go through seeing the changes as well. So talk to me a little bit about how you feel when you see your loved ones struggling with tasks that once were simple. I'll give you an example. I went to make the bed one day. I could not figure out how to make the bed. No matter how I put those sheets, they didn't go on. Well, we later realized it's because the sheets were solid, and as long as I buy striped sheets, I can figure it out. But that took us a while. But here's something, my husband and I this November will be married 40 years. I was 2 when I got married, by the way. We will be married 40 years. So I've been making beds a long time. And then I could not figure out how to make a bed. How do you feel when you see these changes in your loved one? And Brenda, we'll start with you this time.
Okay. I have a hard time expressing feelings. I can tell you what I do better than what I feel lots of times. But when I see Mark struggling, it's hard, because for us, okay, so I think for us there's two kinds of scenarios. One, he's struggling, and so again, this isn't a feeling, but I'll say what I do. When I see him struggling, my first reaction is, I should dive in and help him, right? And right, that's not right, so I have to resist that first reaction, because that's, what I want to do. So that's one scenario. Another scenario at our house is that he gets really frustrated with it, because like with you making the beds, you might just get frustrated if it's the first thing that went wrong today, right? You might just be a little bit frustrated. But if it's the 5th thing or the 10th thing that you used to be able to do very easily, and now you're struggling, and you've had this little frustration here, and now this one, and now this one. Well, guess what happens to a little bit of frustration? The heat turns up, and then you get angry, and there's then that outburst. And so then that creates a whole other set of feelings to deal with. And so because of those kinds of scenarios, I think what you're talking about in the questions you're moving into about strategies to help deal with this is such an important conversation. And I commend the group for this discussion. So Erin, try to top that answer, because I thought it was really good.
I don't know that I can top that answer. Our situation is a little different because it's still really early. And so we're not seeing a lot of the struggle with different types of tasks necessarily, but just watching the expression and the processing time that things can take is really what we're seeing. And so when seeing that, it just creates these feelings of sadness, especially because of the work that I've done and knowing what future can look like. Doesn't mean that will be our future or that it will be immediate. We don't have those answers right now. But the potential of what it can be can create an onslaught of feelings, and just the element of the unknown can really be challenging in that sense.
Thank you so much for expressing that. It's a lot of care partners don't talk about how they feel. And yet I think that's so important. They need to know, we need to know how you're feeling. And just as we need to communicate with you, you need to communicate with us. So then the big question, how do you deal with these emotions? Now that we've pulled the emotions out into the forefront, how do we deal with them? Who would like to start off with that question?
Me.
Brenda!
This is me in school when I was a kid. Does that surprise you? Call on me. I made a whole list of things. And so, Erin, if we can kind of just do a go back and forth, might be easier.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll share one of the strategies that I have, and then Erin, you can tell how that's worked for you, or if you've tried something different, we'll just go back and forth. For me, like I said, I have a whole list. I've thought about things a lot. I think about things a lot. And so one of the things that I think early in terms of dealing with all this emotion is that we need to recognize that we need so I put down, recognize that you need a support team for your partner. The partner cannot do it alone. But also recognize that your care partner needs a support team. So it's kind of like, it's frequent that we hear, at least in my professional life, about a care plan for the person living with dementia. And that's great. But what I'm basically saying is we also need to develop a care plan for the care partner so that they both have support throughout this journey. What's your thoughts about that one, Erin?
I agree with you 100%. And just some additional reasoning as to why that's so important. So we look at social isolation and the effects that it can have on people. And many times care partners don't necessarily express that they're feeling socially isolated or not having that support. And so a support system for them is huge. Many times these support group members can be overlapping within each other, but you need to have distinct, different groups of people. And another reason why I really just agree with that is that we know that caregivers and care partners really struggle and may have additional physical health changes because of the stresses that they're undergoing. And some of that stress is because of, for someone that may need more hands-on care or things of that nature. But the stresses that we've just talked about, the unknown, the what's next, the how do I best help to support, where should I really be helping, not communicating, not expressing those feelings, there's a higher risk for them when they're not supported to have those physical changes. So again, that's just a little bit more evidence to push us in that direction to ensure that there is that safety net, if you will.
And Erin, what I like about what you said is that some can be overlapping and some might not be. So I need to have a few people that I can talk to, at least one that I can talk to that is my go-to person. Mark and I have people in our support circle together, but he also needs that one person that he can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very difficult, so one of the things that's difficult for me is how much of that grief do I share with my person? do I share with Mark? Laurie, you mentioned earlier, you can see it on your husband's face. You know, people see it in their loved ones. You know it. You've been partners for 40 years. You know it. The grief is there because the grief is there for you too. So you know that they are. And so how much, you know, for me as the care partner, so I say, well, how much should I share with them? So that takes me to my next one that I personally have benefited from. And we've gone for counseling throughout this journey from time of diagnosis sporadically throughout. So we've done couple counseling where we've talked together about feelings. Ooh, about feelings. Something I'm not very good at. We talked about feelings and situations. But also from time to time, we felt the need to individually go in for counseling. So we could talk about the other one. So professional counseling, and we've done that for both, you know, a counselor, or with our pastor too at different times. So I think that's another way to help too.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with that also. I think we're just going to agree with each other this whole time, Brenda. But really, for me, I'm someone that I like to be in control. And so I like to know everything is in its box and it's organized, and that's not this life. And so learning to not focus so much on that control and the need for control, I can't do that on my own. I cannot do that on my own. And so that's really where professional help has been just tremendous. You know, we can't control the changes that are happening. And that's, you know, one of the first things that you really kind of start to work through is that you want to control it and you want to fix it. And there isn't that fix. It's really kind of adapting to a both and process. So being both a spouse and a care partner, a spouse, a care partner, a mother, a friend. It's just being all of those things together and not trying to control any of it all together, if that makes sense.
Okay, well, you guys are full of ideas and just boy, excellent thought process here. Okay, so many of us living with dementia really do feel our care partner, and we've talked about a lot of things. We can feel their hurt, their frustration. We feel the guilt, as we had talked about earlier with it's my fault. As I see our finances totally different than what they were supposed to be, you know, although you know it's not your fault, it's dementia's fault, it's because of me. Or you see your care partner sad or frustrated, and you just know. As a care partner, what can I do to help you direct? Does it help for me to say, I'm sorry, and hold you and cry together, or to punch you, or, you know, send you flowers? I mean, you know, what kind of things could I do to make you my care partner?
Right.
Know you're appreciated and help you through the emotions that we know you're going through as well.
Laurie, I think that is that's a phenomenal question. And first of all, I also want to acknowledge what you know, I can so identify with the situation you gave in terms of, you know, paying the bills and you're seeing the money. You know, I'm working age. Mark, like many others, could be working age, right? And he sees himself as a drain on our finances, right? His medication just drains us. He's not a contributing, you know, he often talks about he's not contributing to our household finances. And in fact, he's, you know, doing the opposite. So I totally hear that as a good example of those feelings. And I had made some notes, you know, planning for this, and I don't think I wrote this in my notes. But something that I learned along the way, and that's the word partner. Okay. I have to let Mark care for me. And I have to recognize ways that Mark cares for me. Okay. so that balances that playing field, right? If I'm the giver, if I'm giving, and he's never, it's good for both of us for me to receive. It feels good for me to receive, and it feels good for Mark to give. I mean, some people might say these are so silly things that that's not that big of a deal. But to me, these things are important. For example, I'm a big iced tea drinker. My husband brings me an iced tea several times a day. I mean, it just shows he's thinking of me, right? So another thing, this one you're going to really laugh at, Erin. Okay, we have a nuts, the honey roasted nuts. They're the best. He knows which ones are my favorite nuts. So when he eats them, there's the top container right next, and he puts my favorite nuts there, and he saves those for me, and he eats the others. Now, tell me, really, really, Laurie, right? You said, that is, to a woman especially, I think we all like, whoa, that's romantic, that's sweet, that's very, and it's just a nut. He's just a nut, but it's like, he saves me my favorite nuts. Now, you should have such a good husband as that, Erin. So I think as the care partner, we have to allow our person to take care of us too. Mm-hmm. And then to that same time, we have to take care of ourselves too as the care partner. So allowing us, and you know what? Most people I know, our friends that we hang with are living with dementia, they're pushing their care partner out the door, right? Go do some time for yourself, get a block. So they recognize that. So the other part then, before I take a breath and Erin can have a few minutes, is to give each other grace, right? Like just, most everybody in DAA knows Teepa Snow, right? And so I've had lots of training with Teepa, and Mark's gone with me and done it. And so he knows it as good as I do. And one day we got in a big old fight, and he says, well, you're not doing what you teach others to do. And he was right. But I said, well, I never did dementia before. So, so it is about giving grace. Yep. I get up in front of a group and I talk and I say, this is Erin's favorite word. This is how you should do it. And then I go home and I don't do it myself. So I'm trying the best. And so that whole grace is, when I screw up as your care partner, if you would, cut me some slack and give me some grace. So what do you think about that should on statement there, Erin?
Well, Brenda, I think you slaughtered it a little bit. The exact quote is, you should never should on anyone. So it's so easy to get up in front of a group and to talk about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And it's way harder to implement that. So grace is huge. Humor is good too. Laughter, really, we can laugh or we can cry. Personally, I'd rather laugh. And just create some moments that lift our spirits a little bit. And just hopefully those moments will be sustained feelings that will continue on. I like your comment about, making sure that the care partner has a block of time. Not all folks are comfortable with this. Some folks may experience a lot of anxiety with being alone. And so being able to really encourage them to do that without any guilt or without any backlash of, oh, you're leaving again. Oh, you're going to do this again. That can be really hard, but that's also where it comes into play, where everyone needs their own support system so that they have those other individuals to reach out to, and to engage with, as well. Something else is just to be honest. Honesty is the best policy. And if you're not truly honest about those feelings that you're having, it's going to create additional ripples. And those ripples may turn into waves, as time goes on. So that's just, honesty, faith, prayer, all of those things really go into it, just all together. And focusing again, just trying to focus on the positive and staying positive throughout.
Well, Erin, I'll share kind of one last thing that I think of that you said, the whole faith and the prayer and all of that too, is that, quiet time. And then during our quiet time, a journaling or a blessings journal. I mean, those have become fairly popular, right? So a blessings journal that you do together, every night before you go to bed or in the middle of the day or whatever, just what was your blessing for today?
Mm-hmm.
And so help us both shift back to the positive.
I'll share with you what we do. And we do actually a good moment box. So we have young kids. And so we take Post-it notes, and actually it's in a big basket. And so we'll throw, each night at dinner, we're doing peaks and pits of the day. And we'll throw those good moments into the basket. And in the bad moments, we'll shake up the basket and pick one out. And there's our good moment. So some of them are really quite funny when you go back and reread them. And others, are just really heartwarming. So can help to really kind of keep it in the moment for you.
I want to thank you both for coming on. This has just you've been so full of information. And I'd like to obtain your points since you have them written down, Brenda, and then we'll make them available through DAA. So we'll talk about that afterwards. But I need to cut us off now because this is going to be for dementia discussions, and we want to have plenty of time to talk about all these fabulous points. So I want to thank both Erin Wallace and Brenda Roberts for joining us today. And for all the people viewing this, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We have a number of podcasts for This Dementia Life and for dementia and for professional insights on there. So we welcome you to look at them all and to join us during our dementia discussions, which is every Thursday at 1:00 Eastern. So thank you all for watching, and visit our website at daanow.org. Thank you. Have a great day.
We're living our lives with purpose, engaging our days to find better ways, and